Welcome to another episode of Live with Laura. I'm your host, Laura Hediger. And for this one, I'm going to start with a couple of questions. First one, would you please raise your hand if you love the Cardinals, the Blues, and the Billikens? Yes. Okay, hands back down. Now again, would you raise your hand if as a kid you ever grew up thinking, I want to cover the Cardinals, the Blues, and the Billikens? Yes, me too. So many of us here in the St. Louis area had that dream, but there are only a select few who are living it out as their career. And we are so lucky for our guest today to be one of the few, the very special few, the very talented few who get to do that. Sports on 4's own Tamar Sher. Tamar, it is so good to see you.
It is always great to be with you. I'm never up this early to be able to hang out with you, but thanks for having me in, and what an introduction. You are so right. I am completely living the dream.
You are, and it's a dream we're going to get into that I have a feeling you've had for a very long time. But before we get to that, this gal is too humble, so we are going to brag on her because she has just won a huge, huge award. Tamar Sher, just 3 years in the St. Louis market back in her hometown, has been named the Missouri Sportscaster of the Year.
Thank you, Laura.
No, don't thank me. Thank yourself.
Thank you.
It is your work ethic, your talent, your drive, your excitement, your knowledge that won you this honor.
You make me emotional because here in St. Louis I didn't know that I could realize that dream, being here, being with my family. I'm a 10-minute radius from my entire family living in U City right now. I grew up going to Clayton High School, and I put it in the post when I recognized that I received the honor of Missouri Sportscaster of the Year. And I said, I could have not dreamt or imagined walking through the hallways of Clayton High School that I would be here in this moment, giving back to my St. Louis community in a way that is realizing a dream of covering my teams that I grew up watching. We grew up on Cardinals baseball, on Blues hockey. Now we got a soccer club that we're excited to talk about. But it truly was such an emotional experience for me to walk the stage, take a deep breath as one of the only women in the crowd to do that as well and say, okay, I'm here, and the work is far from done, but to be able to just have this first moment of recognition and realization that I'm here in this moment was really, really special.
Because it is the entire state of Missouri. And let's connect the dots. St. Louis, huge sports market, some broadcasting legends have spent time in this market. Harry Carey, Jack Buck, of course, Joe Buck, so many others. But Kansas City, also another huge, huge sports market. Then you have Columbia with everyone who covers Mizzou and the other colleges around this great state. And you were chosen. When did you find out you had been named Missouri Sportscaster of the Year?
It was a couple months ago, actually, I received the call. And my good girlfriend, Katie Wu, who is a sports writer now with the Dodgers, but she was with the Cardinals, she was the one who informed me that I was nominated because she saw it across social media and said, hey, girl. She was a winner as a sports writer, and she said, hey, you were nominated as Sportscaster of the Year. So I kind of kept tabs, but of course, you're not really thinking about that. You're just like, oh, this is really cool. Among the names that I was nominated with, you look back in the history, and some of the names you mentioned actually won the Sportscaster Award. So I'm thinking, okay, this is just really cool to be in conversation. And then to actually see it out, get the call. I won the Sportscaster of the Year, and it is nominated by peers and then voted on by peers within the National Sports Media Association. So for me, that was the most emotional part of it, was because it's recognition from people who understand the grind, who understand what it means to do this job. And I have to also mention just the platform and ability that I've been able to have here at KMOV in 3 years. Seeing the growth into First Alert 4, into Matrix Midwest, building this new sports network. It's something, again, JD and Scott at the time both looked at me and said, hey, if you come here, there's going to be a lot of growth. There's going to be a lot of exciting things happening. Trust the process. Oh, I trusted the process, and it has just blossomed into something amazing. So that's why I got the award, was because of all the amazing things I get to do, the privilege I have because I get to do this job. And it doesn't feel like work when you're doing something you love. I know you feel the same way. We've had this conversation, but that is why this was such a big honor for me.
And it's been such an evolution here at First Alert 4. You've only been here 3 years. There was a time not that long ago in the last decade, last 12 years, where sports we just did not cover as much. And the thought was, well, there's Twitter, there's ESPN. People who want to know how the Cardinals or the Blues are doing can just pull up their phones and figure it out. What you guys are creating with the Sports on 4 department is truly all access. You just had a new show named All Access Baseball.
Yeah.
And what you are bringing to the fan is what the fan can never get just reading the stats. You are finding out so much more about the players and who they are and how it all works in the bigger ecosystem that is St. Louis sports fandemonium.
And that's the big thing when you talk about the right now news. Of course, everyone can get their highlights instantly. If they want to see them, that's where they find them. But the whole thing about this entire media industry and sports, it's about relationships. It's about how to build relationships with people, how to find the stories, to dig for the stories. And you find that by being present, being there. So a lot of my job, I actually get a lot of family members all the time saying, well, why weren't you on at 10? I thought you were working. Why weren't you on at 6? Well, first of all, we have 3 of us, amazing people, Grace, Jacob, and myself, who get to be on air. But a lot of my job, and the majority of my job, is not on air, but it's building relationships in the community. It is reaching out to people. It's being in the Cardinals clubhouse, even when I don't have to, just because I want to be around. I want to be available if they have a question for me, or if I'm observing something that I could possibly build into a story. You never know what you're going to find out until you're there, until you build the relationships with people. And that's why I love this job so much. So you ask about why I got started in sports journalism. I would argue that I wanted to be in the relationship business. I wanted to be in a space where I could really connect with people, to understand people, and then be able to relay their stories to our viewers and to the screen. And to your point, that's what I'm in this for. Not to, yes, we have to show the highlights in some aspect, but it's not all about that. It's about people connecting with people. I want you to understand who Jordan Walker is when he gets his first All-Star selection. I want you to be able to understand the grind that he went through and why this is important. That can only be told on platforms like we have.
Let's go back to little Tamar. When you were a little girl, what did you say that you wanted to be when you grew up?
Well, my parents, it's hilarious. They say that I've once said, oh, I would love to be on TV. And they asked, oh, how are you going to be that way? How are you going to get there? I didn't know. And then when I got older and I went to high school, I was the yearbook editor-in-chief at Clayton High School. And that was a dream of mine, to be in journalism. So I'm thinking writing or something. Unfortunately, I was not very skilled in the science and math department, even though I tried to take all the AP sciences and tried to do everything I could to be in those top level classes. That wasn't for me. Stats, I have to do more of that with my job. But when I was growing up, I just said, yeah, I want to be in a place where I can tell people's stories. So going to Indiana University, I'm sorry, we're the Big Ten rival right now.
Oh, hey, I'm totally cool with it. A Big Ten girl sitting across from me, especially Indiana University that just won football's national championship.
Who would have thought? My Hoosiers winning a football national championship.
Not you when you were there just a few years ago.
Exactly. And so when I went there is when I really figured out, okay, I want to be in the media school. Tom Ackerman, sports director at KMOV, was my biggest mentor. I babysat his kids. And so he was someone, I call him my uncle. Like, he's someone who I leaned on a lot when I was looking into the job market, but also just schools and the program of the media school. He says, well, you have to go here. I only applied to Indiana. And so it was my freshman year of college that I really decided, yeah, this is what I want to do. I could have had a dream as a 5-year-old. Oh, I want to be on TV, just because I loved American Idol and I would watch the amazing people, Carrie Underwood on TV, and I'm like, I love that. I want to be her. I can't sing. So that wasn't going to happen for me. But being able to realize the dream and doing literally everything I could possibly do to succeed in the business, starting my freshman year of college and moving on through senior year and beyond, that's when I really found my love of journalism and of sports storytelling.
I like that you connected the dots that you watched Tom Ackerman's kids, because that goes back to a full circle of you saying you're in the relationship business. That's a relationship you've cultivated for years and years. But there's a big difference in going into journalism as a storyteller and doing sports journalism. When I was a news reporter, no one would argue with me if I had the crime stats right. They just accepted that I did, because no one's going to care that much to be like, oh, no, there were this. No, this isn't adding up, Laura. What's so interesting for sports reporters is you have to accept that there probably are viewers consuming your content who might know even more about it. How hard is it staying up to date on things constantly over so many different teams that you're covering too?
Yeah, first of all, I love that people have even more knowledge than me, because that's how I learn. And that's how I also find and cultivate those relationships with people, because I want to learn and constantly learn. If I thought I knew everything, we're in a big situation here, because that's not what I think of as myself. But when you look at the relationship building, when you look at what we are in this for the storytelling, it is being willing to constantly learn and put yourselves in situations to find out things that you can't just look up on a stats sheet. And that's why we go back to the storytelling aspect of it, because those are the stories, and we are all people. And so people make decisions or do certain things or have certain slumps, maybe because of the mental side of the game or the physical side, that you aren't getting when you're just looking at a game, at a screen. You need someone behind the scenes to help relay that information. And I will say, this is something that I just was told, but there's this theory of the 4 burners. So you have family, you have friends, you have work, and what is that 4th burner? I'm blanking on it, and I had it in my head. But you can't have all 3 or 4 burners going at the same exact time.
Someone's going to get burned.
Someone's going to get burned. And so whether it's I have to crank up the notch on the work side of things, which is my constant, or I have to crank down the friends side of things so that I can focus on family a little more, and in combination with work, there's a lot that goes into this job, and you make sacrifices because of this job. I work weekends, but for me, that doesn't feel like a sacrifice, because everything that I want to cover is on the weekends and is at night. So that is the way that you stay after it. You are constantly on your phone, but you are constantly on your phone and working weekends and nights if this is what you love and want to do. So for me, I've never felt like that was a sacrifice that I'm making. My family understands that this is what I love, and that's why I've surrounded myself with people who understand that and allow me to fully dive into what I want to do. And I'm constantly studying so that I can know as much as possible. The person sitting across from me or is on their phone that believes that they know more than me, well, I will do everything in my power to also know what they know and hopefully know more on a certain topic or other.
But again, what makes it so interesting for sports reporters is it's one thing to do a deep dive on one team. You have to do deep dives on so many teams. Right now we are in baseball season, but Tamar was actually the sideline reporter during the SLU Billiken games, which is an incredibly big deal. It's a really big deal that you are able to coordinate your schedules here at Channel 4 with the games, and especially in a year when SLU went on such an iconic run. What was it like diving into college sports, which is a different beast than professional sports.
Yeah, and I started that way. Starting at Indiana, having a lot of opportunities to cover IU sports, and that's really where the launch began for me in finding out this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. But I had the opportunity. I want to tell you how I got this opportunity.
Please.
Because I feel like this is very representative of how we need to be as people besides from the job. So when I was working a Cardinals game, it was, I think, 3 years ago now, because I've had the Billiken gig for the last 2 seasons with Josh Schertz, who I think is an incredible coach, an incredible human. I love working with him. And I was at a Cardinals game. It's a pregame. And I was meeting with their producer of the Cardinals game. His name's Brian. And we're just talking. And I have been nice around the ballpark. And I met one of the guys that he works with, Aaron, who needed an umbrella for one of his talent that didn't have an umbrella when it's pouring. And he has to do the post-game interview after a win. And I'm like, take my umbrella. Here we go. And we're just becoming friends. Well, little did I know, they wanted to come down, meet me, kind of feel me out, and I get an email from Brian a couple weeks later. Hey, you ever think of doing any sideline? We'd love to have you on as the SLU sideline reporter. So it wasn't me stretching myself out or trying to be someone I wasn't. I was simply being authentically me to meet someone that wanted to give me a shot and opportunity and see where it went. And then I ended up being on the broadcast with Tom Ackerman, who's been a big mentor for me. So another full circle moment. And it's one of those things, you have to be studied. You have to know the ins and outs. I would show up to shoot, like the start of shoot around. So that's 4 hours before tip off, and then stay through the end of the game post game. So sure, you're saying, basketball game's just 2 hours. No, it's not. It's all the prep work that goes into it. And before those 4 hours, I would find time to prep for the game. So I would go to the pregame press conference, probably the day or 2 days before, be able to talk to coaches, players, get my storylines, do some interviews before the game during shoot around, and then you start the game. So there's a lot of prep work that goes into it, but it really starts from being able to be that person that people trust and want to go to and give those stories to, and being authentically you.
So many of the things you just said in that last answer, I want to circle back to in our next conversation, part of our conversation with Tamar, but specifically you said, I was just being human. And you never know what human interaction you are going to have with someone that A, could open a door, but B, is just the right thing to do.
Right.
You have the umbrella, someone needs it, it's an umbrella. And that opening the umbrella has opened many, many doors. And I am so thankful that we have Tamar on our team here at First Alert 4. And she just did a big breakdown of how much time, effort, and energy goes into that 2-hour basketball game. I think that's something a lot of us as sports consumers take for granted. We always think, oh, well, just read this. It's handed to you.
Right.
Oh, no. So after this break, we are going to find out even more of the prep that goes into what it takes to be the person out there talking about the biggest storylines in sports. But I encourage you to share this with anyone who has ever thought about going into sports journalism, or really anyone who needs a nudge to say, you've got this. Even though maybe a door's not open right now, who knows what door is going to open in the next few weeks. We are here with Tamar Sher on Live with Laura. What an honor it is to spend this hour with all of you who are listening and watching right now. And what a treat it is to sit down across from my own coworker, Tamar Sher, who is fresh off going on a big trip to North Carolina for the National Sportscaster of the Year Awards.
Thank you.
And you represented the state of Missouri.
Yes, I did. And what's crazy is I stayed in the very same resort as Team Norway from the World Cup. So Erling Haaland was sitting in the same seats that I was sitting in. They weren't there the same time, but a lot more security than normal at the National Sports Media Awards ceremony. But it was a really cool experience to represent KMOV and St. Louis, the place I love the most and I've called home since I was born.
And let's talk about the fact that you are a female in a male-dominated field. Of the 50 states who are represented, not everyone could go. But of the people who are there, how many females?
So I was sitting at a table with 2 other women who won awards. And like you mentioned, not everyone was able to be there because we are in the heart of baseball season. And I know people are working and couldn't make it to the awards ceremony. But yeah, there are 3 of us who were able to walk the stage, a woman from Florida and a woman from Iowa and myself. And I was the first woman in Missouri to win this award. So just to hear that, there's, of course, sports writers and sportscasters. So of the sportscasters, I was the first woman. And it was very surreal. But as you know, Laura, I am in a lot of situations where I am the only woman or one of few women. And how we navigate that space is exactly what we talked about in the first half of this conversation. It's being authentically you and showing up every single day, showing what your intentions are and who you are. And that makes the rest easier. So for me, I'm always in that space. Walking into the Cardinals clubhouse for the first time, I only saw one woman across the way. I immediately go up to her and say, hey, can we be friends? And then it turns into a beautiful friendship because we have that connection. But that doesn't mean I'm not also connecting with the other men in my industry, the men in the circle, because at the end of the day, I had male and female mentors growing up through my experience in this career who've all been instrumental in my growth.
And I love that you say, hey, can we be friends, instead of viewing that one other female as your competition. Something that's been really special to watch over the last 2 decades is the evolution of women in sports broadcasting. Back in the early 2000s to about 2010, there was one. It was Erin Andrews. And everyone said, I want to be Erin Andrews. I want to be Erin Andrews. I still want to be Erin Andrews because she was just at Taylor Swift's wedding.
Of course.
Right. But even here at First Alert 4, aren't you and Grace the first 2 female sportscasters on our team?
And what's crazy is it's Grace, myself, Jacob. Sorry, man, you're outnumbered here. And we have a female producer as well. Abby is a woman, and she is our sports producer. So we have 3 women in the department. And if you ask anyone, we are everywhere. We are making sure that we do coverage correctly in this town, in this area. And I think the team of 4 of us have really loved working together and what we've been able to build. But yeah, it is very unique to say, hey, we got a team of 3 women in a sports department. That's very unique, I think, countrywide.
And it's just so exciting as a female sports fan because we care about it too. Maybe I'm not going to follow every single stat of the Cardinals, but I do care about those inner stories and big picture. For when I take my own family to Busch Stadium, I want to be able to point out to my kids, oh, Tamar says Jordan Walker is up to this and this is his favorite food, whatever the case may be. Those are the fun things.
Yeah, and there's some women who do follow every single stat and are very hungry in knowing everything about sports. And there are women, like you say, that want the holistic view of the all of it, of the human aspect of sports. And so the goal in local television, especially when you're covering your teams, is to give the view to everyone who is consuming. So I had my first boss tell me, you need to give your sports reports like you are giving it to the avid Cardinals fan, because Cardinals fans are very knowledgeable.
Yes.
Blues fans in this area, very knowledgeable. This is a sports town.
Yeah,
you have to not dumb it down, but you also have to give the relatable human side that I'm not pouring out stats that you're like, I'm not following, I'm going to turn off the channel. So it is a balance that you have to play, but just by being knowledgeable yourself and being able to decipher what you want to include, that helps with the process of how to give your sports report.
Something that's exciting about the industry of broadcasting and journalism is you never know where it's going to take you. Whereas maybe in law or accounting or maybe even education, the path is really laid out. And if you put in the time and follow the steps, you pretty much know after a few years, you're going to be right at this point, right at this point, right at this point. With journalism, you could start in Montana and move to Florida and then Oklahoma. And after 4 months in Oklahoma, there are mass layoffs. And now you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess your path was not always straightforward.
Not linear. That is the big thing that
Were there some challenges that you faced and doors that you really wanted to open that just didn't?
So it starts back in college and back when I wanted to start in this career. And everyone says you have to get an internship at a local news station your junior year or else you're way behind. And for me, I graduated COVID, but before COVID even hit, I was trying to find that internship and I was still trying to get the live reps because that's what everyone will tell you in this industry is you need the live reps to be able to get in, just get your foot in the door. So when I didn't get that internship junior year, I'm figuring out what I'm going to do. And I grew up a camp counselor. That was my first job. That was my first love. And so when I saw an opening, a friend actually sent it over to me, a sorority sister, and it said, hey, if you want to be a sports broadcasting counselor, intern, and get 48 hours networking with Tracy Wolfson, the lead CBS sideline reporter for the NFL and March Madness. I said, yeah, I'm going to apply to that and sign up.
What camp is this? Can I apply now?
It's an all-boys sports camp in Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So the Blues won the Stanley Cup, and the day after, I'm flying to Boston to head to Pittsfield, Massachusetts in my We Wore Blue shirt.
Yes.
I am in my St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup shirt the day after, and here we are in Boston. And it ended up being an incredible experience. I got another summer at camp, but then I got to build this relationship where the next year, Tracy's covering the March Madness NCAA championship in Indianapolis when it's a bubble, COVID. We distanced outside. We're able to talk through some career moves, figure out what I wanted to do to start my journey because, as you said, this is not a linear career. So I didn't know how I really wanted to start in sports journalism. Local TV is where I ended up starting. Got some great feedback from Tracy, and then now throughout the years, covered a Super Bowl, went to the Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl in Vegas and got to interview her when she was right before she was on the sidelines. So it really came full circle. Grateful I chose that camp opportunity to build a connection for a lifetime. You never know where you're going to build relationships. But the first job I had was in Evansville, Indiana. And the way I got that job was similar to how I got the Billikens job, where I was on a Zoom call with a bunch of different news directors from around Gray Media, just meeting students. I asked a question, knowing I wasn't going to immediately get to my hometown. I asked all the news directors, so how do you help young journalists who are getting in the business and are relocating? Because I'm from St. Louis. I know I'm not going to get there immediately. That's a big market to get into. But how do you help with the relocation? And my news director ended up unmutes himself and says, well, hey, I can get you halfway home. Come to Evansville, Indiana, and then I'll get you to St. Louis. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, sure. He's just pulling my leg. Well, it ended up happening 2 weeks later. I get the job in Evansville as a sports director. A year and a half later, I was able to meet wonderful people here at Channel 4, First Alert 4, who said, hey, yeah, come on home. So it was a really cool experience.
And that's another evolution of this industry because back in the day, that also would not have been the case. There was never a time where all these different news directors would be on the same Zoom call answering questions
from students.
Absolutely not. And that's one of the amazing things. You said Gray Media. For those of you who are not familiar, Gray is now the parent company of First Alert 4. It's one of the biggest ones in the entire country. It owns 117 television stations. And something that's really exciting about this is they're very, very big on promoting from within, where when I started in this industry, there was none of that. It was you sign a contract for this specific place, even if you have a sister station that you wanted to go to. No, you are hours. So the fact that there's now this pipeline is fantastic because you're learning so many of the things at that station that are going to be transferable at your next place too.
And it takes a lot of hard work to get there. So the funny part about it was, yes, he did say at first, hey, I'll get you to St. Louis, but I could have never come here if I didn't do what I did in Evansville, building the relationships that I built in Evansville with every single high school football and basketball and soccer coach and University of Evansville, University of Southern Indiana, and building shows there. So I was able to build a lot when I was in Evansville. I loved my time there, loved the people I worked with. I was just in a wedding for one of my girlfriends of the first person I met when I walked through the door for my first day of work. Now we're best friends. Those experiences were so invaluable. I learned so much along the way, and that's why I got to be here in this position. So it is wonderful. The pipeline is there and it's open, but it's still for those who earn it and who work really, really hard. And that's what I tell a lot of young people and young students who are trying to get in the business and are wondering where they should start. It's not linear.
No.
And you have to work your tail off to be able to get where you want to get. And be authentic because people see right through you if you're not that way.
And be willing to try a lot of different things. You mentioned the live reps. A live rep is essentially exactly what we are doing right now, talking in real time to people who are watching in real time. And something that's so big about this industry is you're going to make mistakes. You always are. That's just the way it is. And your first market is really the place to try everything. And you know what? If you tried something and it's a big mistake, you're going to get much more grace when you're starting out versus if you think, no, I deserve to absolutely start in a St. Louis, a Chicago, because I just deserve it. No.
Correct. You don't want to fall at a place like St. Louis or Chicago. You don't want to fall anywhere, but it's a lot bigger stage. The lights are brighter, and you got to take some deep breaths before you get to those points.
Yes. So let's talk about some of the deep breaths you have had to take since being back here in St. Louis. It's one thing to be covering professional teams. It's another thing to know your own mom and dad are able to watch, and every single person who you've ever met from your hometown. What was it like coming back to your hometown and those first few broadcasts?
Well, one of my very first, actually it was my first live shot that I ever did was opening day for the Cardinals. And so talk about throwing me into the pressure cooker. It was, I did a live show on March Madness, waited a couple weeks, and then here we go, opening day. And I was standing on the corner right outside of Busch, and here I know every single person that's passing me, and I have 5 seconds to go on air, and people are coming, hi, Tamar, we're so happy for you. I'm like, thank you, I'm about to go on. But it was such an amazing experience because of the teachers who've reached out to me from elementary school who remember me and that I keep in touch with, or back in Clayton High School, or getting to do stories with Clayton High School with people who I grew up knowing and learning from. That's the most surreal experience for me. And then, knock on all the woods, all 4 of my grandparents are still here and able to watch me. And so that is what's meaningful, is when I get off and I have a moment to just go on a dinner break or do something, I'm going to be with my grandparents. And that's a really emotional thing for me because I am close with my family in that way. But it's just a dream. It's just a dream come true to be able to be with people and then to see who's come back in my life because I am home and get to be here. And I will say too, though, because I know people are watching and I know people are going to give me good feedback and maybe unwanted feedback in the moment. It's always wanted feedback. I love critique and feedback, but you have to be on your toes and be willing to accept that as well. And it's made me better. It's made me stronger. It's made me feel as though I am advancing in my career because I have a good support system, but I also have people who are also able to give me tips or tricks or advice or little story nuggets that I wouldn't get elsewhere because it's not my hometown. So it's been cool.
What is the best piece of advice you have gotten since covering sports here in St. Louis?
That's a really good question. be where your feet are, and always observe, and then just keep your eyes open. I think that's the biggest thing. We as storytellers, we can get so deep in the weeds of what we have to do right now in this moment. But if you're not paying attention and breathing in the air and just experiencing life in the community, in the city, then you're not seeing all that's out there. You're not really understanding the storylines and ways that we all connect. That's the way that I feel like I've succeeded in my hometown, is by opening my eyes and making the relationship connections and being willing to ask questions and dive a little deeper. So that's the big piece of advice. When life feels really hectic, take a moment to be where your feet are and understand what's happening around you so that you can get the best out of yourself and the best out of the situation.
And also be where your feet are. Be present enough to realize how cool it all is.
Yeah.
Your first live shot was Cardinals opening day.
I know. It's still so crazy. Even people ask me the hardest question to answer, two of them. First, what's your favorite sport to cover? I am a person of the moment. When it's Cardinals season, I love Cardinals baseball. When it's hockey season, I'm serious. I love covering the Blues. So it's hard for me to answer that question. And the second question that is very challenging for me to answer is, who's the most famous or the best person you've ever interviewed? I'm like, in the past year, I have interviewed Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina. And in the moment, though, people ask how if I get starstruck or whatever the moment. We talked about this in the first half. We're all human. So I'm talking to another human being. I'm getting to meet someone. Yeah, I did grow up watching Yadi and Albert and still admiring what they've done for the game of baseball. But Bob Costas, when he came to town. But at the same time, these are human beings, and I'm trying to understand and learn about their stories and build relationship and rapport. And so those are moments that are pinch me after the fact. But in the moment, you are just, it's another day in this crazy, crazy job I get to live and love. But those are the moments where you sit back and I'm like, I need to write this stuff down so that I remember this. I won't ever forget all the incredible people that I've met along the way, but still, some of the moments and the feelings that I had after the fact, I want to hold on to forever.
We are sitting with Tamar Sher, one of our amazing Sports on 4 anchors and reporters, as she is just coming off this huge Missouri Sportscaster of the Year win. We've talked about her past, her present. What does the future for Tamar look like? What does the future of sports reporting look like? We are going to get into that coming up next on Live with Laura. We have a few more minutes together with Tamar Sher, our Sports on 4 sports anchor and reporter, Missouri Sportscaster of the Year. Tamar, you've been with First Alert 4 for 3 years now. There's been a massive evolution. Channel 4 has been airing Cardinals games for free. We've been airing Blues games for free. Matrix Midwest, an entire sports station, has launched. So that's all happening in a very short amount of time. What do you see as the future of sports and the way we consume it?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're doing and seeing, we talk about social media and the immediacy of people getting everything right away. Well, now it's our job to bring you in a little bit deeper and to find ways to connect with the viewer on a very local level. So yes, nationally, you can get your Cardinals highlights, but on a Cardinals program like we have now, we have All Access Baseball every Friday at 6:30 for the rest of the season, and we're trying to provide insight in a way into the clubhouse, onto the field that no one else is giving you because we have the access of being there. And that's the advantage of being a sports reporter and anchor. Not that yes, I get to be on TV and it's such a privilege, but it's being in the spaces so that I can then communicate to the viewer and be on TV and say, no, this is why this is happening. Here's the explanation I got from manager Ollie Marmol and from Jordan Walker, the Cardinals' lone all-star for this season. But there are different ways that we can bring out the human side of sports through the platforms we're given. And I will say in the last 3 years that I've been here, we've created so many new shows. We had Mizzou pre and post game shows for football, and I was able to travel with the Tigers. And we were able to, yes, do a lot of Blues coverage because we had the Blues on our air, and Cardinals coverage. And we even created the Nightcap on Saturday nights, which is a 30-minute sports program on Saturday nights from 10:30 to 11. That's something that didn't exist before I got here and allows us to dive deeper into creativity and also give you more than just the minute-long highlights that we're able to do. And it's also a lot on social media, being able to then relay that to the audience on social media and stay connected to people in the community is a big part of where sports is trending.
We've said the word evolution a few times, and even as you are going through all this, I remember my first internship at the ABC affiliate in Champaign, Illinois, and I was interning with the sports department, and I'm thinking about what coverage on a Friday night at that time looked like. Maybe a minute at 5, maybe a minute and a half at 6. And then it's total chaos running to all these different high school football games to collect highlights for the 3 minutes you would get at 10. And just what you described, though, this is hours and hours and hours of content that you guys are collecting throughout the week.
And to your point, we aren't just reading something that someone else wrote. No, we are writing everything. We are actually the ones to run out and get the video and be in the Cardinals clubhouse with our camera, asking the questions, editing that video together. So everything that you see on air, from the hair and makeup to the actual words that you're listening to, the video that you're seeing, that's all written, produced, edited by me, by our sports team, by the 4 of us. And that is something that has changed throughout the years, especially in sports departments across the country. That's where things are trending. And that's not subject to sports. It's also happening in news. Of course, we have multimedia journalists. So technically, that's what I am, is a multimedia journalist, anchor, reporter, all the things. But that is how I feel like we are really able to get in the story, because we're able to edit it. We're able to do the whole product and do the entire thing and have creative autonomy over that story. So that's where things are going in terms of sports reporting and journalism. But it's amazing to be able to be in the space and to have the capabilities of doing all that.
When you're in the space, in the locker room or on the field after a game, is there one go-to question you always have in your back pocket that you know will get an interesting response?
It has to be situational. Like, if I'm not watching the game, it is very obvious in my questions, especially we talk about my sideline reporting gig at SLU. I'm always watching everything. I'm sitting right next to the bench so that in huddles, in breaks, timeouts, that I can go and listen to what coach is saying and relaying to his players. And really, you ask questions based on what's happening in the situation. If someone's getting emotional, ask why. Ask the next question. Don't just say, well, I had this question on my head, so I'm going to ask that next question. It's really paying attention to the situation. Jordan Walker gets the All-Star selection nod. We were able to talk to his manager, Ollie Marmol, and Jordan yesterday. And when Ollie said, it was just emotional for the entire clubhouse, immediately my next question is, why? Why was it? What made it so emotional? And then he was able to dive into the 3 years of perseverance that Jordan had to get to this moment, and why it was impactful seeing a guy like him who dealt with a lot of adversity and struggles and came out on the other side, and then asked Jordan the follow-up too. So it's all about where you are and observing and being willing to not be so strict on what you need to ask, when you need to ask, because maybe that question, and I'm sure you've experienced this, you can't ask it because it didn't fit. It fit 20 minutes ago, but it doesn't fit now.
Yes, and what's also really hard is sports is also a billion-dollar industry. It just is. And careers are on the line, reputations are on the line, a lot of money is on the line. And you go back to the word emotion, when the game or the season is not going the way the fans wanted it to or the front office wanted it to, we still want explanations. How do you handle emotionally feeling like, I need to ask this question, though my gosh, if I ask this question, what is the pushback going to be?
Well, I've had a lot of practice because over the last 3 years, it has not all been pretty. And I'm very happy that I am now talking about more exciting things within the Cardinals organization. But it's not easy to talk about things. But we as media people are vessels, and we are helping communicate, to your point, with the viewer, the point that the athlete or the front office person or the manager wants to relay. So we are the conduit. If you're not asking the tough questions, then people are going to come at those people on Twitter or X or any type of social media because they think they have direct line and access to that human being. But really, that is, if you turn your mind into feeling like I'm asking questions because it's important for the viewer to understand what's going on. So you can explain what's happening because they can't get the full story just by watching. They need questions to ask how you really lay out the situation. So that's the way I shift my mind and say, it's not about me. If we had a difficult conversation or a misunderstanding, for example, Ollie's very willing to come back after the fact, be like, what did you mean by that question? Or can we dive deeper in this? Can you reframe this so I understand you better? He's not, or other coaches, Coach Josh Schertz in the middle after a really poor first half, or even a good first half, and he's disappointed in his team's play. He's willing to be open and understanding, knowing that's part of the gig. It's part of the gig to ask questions and to answer questions. And it's not always easy. And you have to come into it in a human-to-human perspective. But you cannot shy away from asking the challenging or uncomfortable questions just because. You have to be willing to ask it in a kind way, but a very direct way as well, knowing that you need to be able to relay the information to viewers.
And it's beautiful hearing that explanation.
Yeah. And that is the real art to this all. This is an art. And this is how you keep relationships. And I am not the beat reporter who is on the road with the team everywhere, but I'm still building relationships with people in all of these organizations to where maybe I go and ask a question when the camera is not rolling of, hey, can you explain this to me so I fully understand? And I'm not asking a question that's going to catch you off guard immediately. Like, there is some rapport there that you can say, okay, let me figure out the situation and then decide if I want to ask a certain question in one way or the other. Asking questions, it matters, and it also matters how you deliver it and your intention behind it. If you're just saying gotcha, then you're going to tear that relationship apart. But someone might be upset by the question that you ask because they don't want to, it's the heat of the moment, they don't want to answer it, but you have to just feel it out and also not shy away from asking the tough ones.
As you look back at your career and you have so much ahead of you, what is a piece of advice you wish you would have received when you were starting out?
I think the best piece of advice I actually just received last week when I was at this awards ceremony that I'm going to keep with me forever. So we're always learning. 5 years in, I'm still learning so much about myself and the industry, but it's you define success. So in a world where everyone's constantly chasing things and wanting the next, where am I at in life? Am I past the mark? You define what you think is success, and also to be the best you can be really determines all of that and allows that to all unfold. So I know that I am my worst critic. I am extremely hard on myself. I tell everyone who's getting into media after every single broadcast, I'm watching back my stuff, I'm critiquing my stuff to say, okay, how can I be better next time? Allow myself to do that while also giving grace to say, okay, realize where I'm at. I'm here in this moment. I'm feeling really good about where I'm at in this moment, and then also allowing myself to keep growing. So it's all encompassing to really allow yourself to sit in the moment and get better at the same time. But that really, you define your own success story. And the next thing everything has challenges. Don't run away from the challenges. Instead, embrace them and realize that you are here for a purpose and a reason, and keep on going.
Thank you for joining the Sports on 4 team. It has been a treat watching you explode into what you are now doing, and I can't wait to see where your journey takes you.
Well, I'm grateful for friends like you, too. I love that we get to make so many friendships as well in this with other women who are succeeding in this industry. So thanks for being willing to highlight me and our department, and also for your friendship.
How can people get in contact with you or follow you on social media?
Yeah, my social media is all Tamar, my name, _Sher, SHER. So you can find me there. I always am willing and open to chatting with people and and answering any questions that you all have as well.
So friends, be present, be where your feet are. Remember, you define your own success. What a treat to sit down with the Missouri Sportscaster of the Year, Tamar Sher, a local gal doing big things. Can't wait to see everything she creates, both professionally and in your personal life, too.
Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate you. I love hanging out with you.
Until next time, friends, thank you for listening, thank you for learning, and thank you for being Live with Laura.